do you feel like the efforting and struggling was like part of this process, or what was it?
If I'm like really honest,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it was hard or difficult.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
like it's hard to really to explain that really in words because all I did was apply for a job. All I did was change my mindset. I got a job and did my work, and like I got bonuses, I got raises, like all these things kind of came flowing in, and like it feels like super personal, like it feels like like God or the universe or whatever is out there is actually working like in my favor, even though I know like our whole department got like different raises and stuff. But like for me personally, like my own journey, the fact that it all lined up to me getting the exact salary that I had written down and forgotten about, mind you. It's not like I had this number in my mind and every day I'm all like, oh, like I didn't put any effort into that.
Right, there you go.
I
So
wrote it down
yeah, you wrote
on
it
the
down.
paper and forgot about it.
That's it. That's like the
And
exact
I just
process that
that
everybody's talking about. So you wrote the thing down on paper and then you forgot all about it.
and I just went about my life doing the things that needed to be done to earn income that I had access to, that I knew. And through that avenue that I already knew, I didn't have to go learn some wild skill or do anything. Through that avenue of what I was already doing, this manifested itself, right? And to me, that's like crazy. Like it's so crazy to me. And then like just that understanding to me is like really affirmed that the idea of manifestation. And I mean, during the whole process, I was working on myself. I was working on my mind, um, and how I thought, and focusing on gratitude and things like that. So I was doing that, and going to my job, doing my best, all those things. But the hardness that I would have imagined or whatever, it wasn't there. Like the hardness, the effort that I thought would be involved in something like this, manifesting your salary or working towards your salary. I thought of it as being like hard work, like this arduous process. And it wasn't. It wasn't that at all. It was just living your everyday life with a different mindset, with a little bit of openness to receive from the universe, right? Just that, and not so much. I mean, like I said, I forgot about it. So it's not like I had so much focus or obsession on this. It's almost like I wrote it down, released it, let it go, and went about feeling gratitude and thankfulness and joy and fostering those attributes. And
Amazing.
basically, I like wake up one day and I'm like, OMG, like this just seemed to happen miraculously, right?
Yeah, and I love the part of what you said about, working on your mindset and the openness. Can you elaborate more about that? Because I think people really want to know, like, okay, like, because what we are hearing you say is that, you know what, your story is exactly what the law of attraction people talk about. They write something down, they don't really think about it, but here's the other element that is missing in those stories, right? Is like the action part. And what I'm hearing you say, however, is that you needed to go for a job. So I would imagine, based on the work that we were doing as well, like you also needed to be open to that before you even went on that job, to let go of certain thingies. Like, you had expectations, you had wishes. Yeah. So I think people listening to this would be like, yeah, but I want those things, right? I had the life you like, so it's like you had the life vision that you wanted, which you kind of had to let that go. It's like, would that be accurate to say? And so like people want to understand, they would want to know, hey, but what about the thing that I want that I can't have, and now I have to move in a direction I'm not comfortable with? Yeah. So can you run us through that process?
Yeah, I think there's like, so, in the beginning of the year, I that it wasn't there. I didn't have that salary, right? When I first got the job, I didn't have that salary.
And this year, I mean, you're talking about 2023 or 20,
23.
yeah,
At the beginning of
23.
2023, I got the job, but I didn't have that salary, right? It took me until
Yeah.
December 2023 to finally
Yeah.
grow into that salary. So during that time, I like, there has to be like some sort of letting go, like under, understanding that for me, I was working on, because I didn't have what I wanted, right? But I didn't want to stay energetically angst about it, like upset about it, thinking about it all the time. I wanted to live in a space of more freedom, more flow, more abundance, more joy. And so cultivating those emotions within myself means that you're going to let go automatically, in a way, of that dream that you had, because you're finding the joy and the peace. You're cultivating mindsets in the moment when you don't have the thing that you say that you really want. And in the process of finding that joy and gratitude and peace in that moment, that action of itself has a releasing aspect to that. That
Like, so finding joy in the present moment actually helps you release. Is that what you were saying?
yeah, I feel like it's interesting kind of walking through this with you, because my internet connection, I'm sorry, it's wacky.
That's okay. Yeah.
I feel like whenever I think about letting something go, I always, I'm kind of like, I don't know, confused, or I'm finding resistance within myself. Like, well, how do I let this go? I just want to let it go. I just want to get over it. I want it to go away. And I didn't really spend time thinking, like, I have this salary that I want to manifest, and now I have to let it go. I wasn't focused on it at all. Does that make sense? I was just
So,
focused on
mm,
finding joy and finding gratitude and finding peace in the moment, in the life that I had. And I wasn't even thinking about letting go. I wasn't thinking about releasing, or, but I did intentionally focus on openness and receiving, because I remember when we did like the femininity exploration, we talked about how feminine energy is receiving, and many people, especially women, aren't used to receiving. So I was trying to cultivate the spirit of openness and receiving, and just being accepting of blessings from the universe. So I did intentionally cultivate that, I think. But the letting go aspect, like, kind of came about naturally as I focused on the gratitude, the openness, the joy, the peace, like those things. Um,
that's huge. That's
almost like
huge.
a
Thank
can't.
you. This is in very in alignment with what I understood about where when we switch our focus, it isn't so much digging something to the ground, like you saying, I need to let go of this, I need to let this go, and I need to work on this. What you're saying now, Sarah, is like you're saying, I switched my focus onto openness and receiving. I'm not even thinking about, oh my God, I need to wrestle that to the ground and like focusing on letting go and like the harder aspects of it. So essentially, you tuned in your attention into something. Would you say it's lighter to focus on? What would you call that? What would you rate your experience focusing on openness or cultivating? Because that's the mindset part you were talking about, wasn't it? Is that part of it?
I think lighter would be a good term. To me, it just feels a lot more beautiful, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
it's just a lot more relaxed, a lot less trying,
Mm,
a lot less effort. It's more of a being state. It's more of just kind of tuning into yourself. And I guess there is some sort of, don't really like the word effort, but even throughout my day at work, just taking that moment to turn myself towards gratitude or love, or just that, the thought, it could be just the slightest thought, and be like, just to lift yourself, because sometimes in the work, and especially we're seeing sick children, I work in a hospital, like, it can be heavy. But choosing to just turn your attention away from that, not that you're ignoring the need of someone else, but turning to that joy and that peace that is within. I'm doing here, like, in that heart, in your heart center, like, if
yeah. So here's what I'm also hearing, right? you also have to make that conscious movement internally to shift into gratitude, even though it's how do you say if there's an effort there, would you say that's a little bit of that conscious effort that you needed to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think, but it's not it's not as difficult as it may seem in the beginning. In the beginning, it may seem difficult because you aren't used to resting in that space of
There we go.
gratitude. But the more that you rest in that space and you can kind of like, you know where it is, it's hard to explain. You know where it is in your body, or you know where it is in your energy field, you can rest there, then
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to get back to that place. And the more often you
yeah,
return, the more easier it is to be,
yeah.
right?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, thank you so much because I mean, what you're saying here is also important for people to understand that. Hey, look, in the beginning, it's not going to be that easy. And I think we worked through this before, but that's what I also wanted to take us back just a little bit because people will be very curious to where you were before, right? And the maybe some of the struggles because they're listening now to your success story, which is to me very inspiring. But I also know people, right, who were where you were before in a sense that how do we even begin this? How do I, so Sarah then, right, or people who where you are, like how do I even get to that place where I could consciously tune in to my emotions? And I remembered like one of the things that we did was like remember one of the processes like resting in that space, finding that within, right? And you are very intuitive. That's what I love about you so much. Like you very quickly grasp, going into the present state or the stance, we ran through that. And I think people will be very curious, like, the story that the struggle that you had, and maybe if you can actually take us through, how did you even, like if you were to take a moment and think about it, how did you, so how do you get to the point where it's like, I can continually rest there? Because I'm sure in the beginning there must be some sort of struggle.
I remember when you first started working with me, but I remember complaining to you for quite some time. I remember telling you I could not feel gratitude. I don't know if you remember me saying that.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
remember you saying, I can't feel gratitude. I don't know what it feels like. I have such difficulty with it. And I think about that often because I can feel gratitude now and I feel like it's such a blessing to feel. Um like it's interesting because I feel like as I look back on my life, the things that were so difficult for me, and now that I have kind of come to a better place, sometimes I just feel so blessed to know what it feels to have gratitude, because there was a time when I was frustrated because I could not feel it, and it's hard to express like the joy that just being able to feel it brings to me. Maybe for someone who hasn't had trouble with gratitude, maybe they've always been able to feel it, or they haven't had that block, but like having that, having overcome that hurdle makes the feeling of gratitude so much more precious to me. And I just sometimes think about it. I'll just be like, I can feel gratitude, and it's such a beautiful feeling. And I love this feeling. And it's so wonderful. And I can't really say for sure, like, what was the one thing I did to get past that. All I know is that I just kept reaching for it. Like, I wouldn't stop reaching for it because I was like, I have to learn gratitude. I want to learn gratitude. The desire to have and feel gratitude and thankfulness and joy. I wanted it. Um, like it's kind of like when they talk about his spirituality, or I don't think it's a specific text in the Bible, but it talks about like when the Bible says you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. Like when you seek after the face of God, or the attributes of God, or the divine, however you want to say it, like when you have that desire, it it will eventually come into your life, but you have to want that attribute enough, right?
Right. So you have to want it. Is that what you're saying? That's what you're saying. You have to desire it. You have to
You have to,
like you want it enough to go for it and
yeah,
find
and like,
like open to it.
yeah, this is something that also such exciting conversation, but but it's
Yeah, I
so
love it.
interesting because I heard someone say on Instagram or TikTok recently, he said that I realized that I desired or I wanted the things of God more than I was interested in searching for the heart of God. And I think that it resonated so much with me because we were talking about the process of letting go of the thing that you wanted, the money, the salary, the life. We want the abundance of God to be made manifest in our life, but we aren't necessarily as interested as pursuing the heart of God, the love, the gratitude, the beauty of it. And so we focus on the thing, the material object that we want. And sometimes that can take away from us actually achieving it, because what do you really want? You want the peace of God, the joy of God, the divine. Like, you want those attributes. And when you shift your focus from the thing that you feel like the divine can give to you or the universe can give to you, and you start searching for that love, the attribute of the divine inside of you, then the material world will manifest that. But the beauty that you found within over overrides the physical manifestation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. What you're saying in terms of the attribute, would you say is also the feeling that we're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that feeling. And even like, okay, do you remember? Gosh, this was way back when we first started working together, like 2022 maybe. And
Wow, that's two
yeah,
years ago.
I remember when I come to you and I was so anxious. I remember how I was a mess, right? I was a mess. And I was so anxious and so stressed out and so worried. And I remember telling you that I wanted all these things, like money, whatever. But of course, at that time in 2022, I hadn't gotten there. I hadn't gotten to where I am now. But I still remember in 2022, like, I had, an experience where I began to more fully understand God or the universe or the divine, however you want to call it. And um, I had almost an immediate release of a lot of the anxiety that I had in my whole life just by starting to understand these things. And I remember telling you, I was like, I had like this moment where I literally like thanked the fear and the anxiety that I had my whole life, because I was like, this fear and this anxiety like brought me to this place where I could finally see and know and understand God better. And I was like, it's funny because all the things that I thought were making me anxious, that I came to you, Jessica, and I was like, I want these things to go away and I want these things resolved. I was like, I got so much peace. I still have all those problems, but I have so much peace within me that that I got more than what I asked for. Even though the problems are still there,
It's
I got
like,
more than what I asked for because I got peace of mind, right? And that,
in
like,
spite of the situation, like in spite of the things that are outside of you, right? It's almost like what I'm hearing you say, like Sarah has gotten stronger, like or not so stronger in that masculine sense, It's just that trust that you seem to already have, or actually not seem, but what I'm witnessing is this trust and resting in the divine and resting in yourself, even though you have to do all these other things, even though your life, let's just put it this way, life hasn't given you what you wanted from the beginning, I would say.
it's not like,
And
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
and
it's been a journey. Like, we just talked about something that 2 years ago, three, however long it's been since we met, and we're talking. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
been a
And
while, and like, there's still things in my life that I will want to change, but the peace, the joy and all those things that come with it, and then on top of that, actually finally seeing something manifest in reality that I asked for, is like, oh my goodness, like, right? It's so
yeah,
exciting and it's so validating, because you don't just have that peace and that knowing and that all those feelings, right? Those attributes of God you want to feel and to embody in your life, but you also
you
have
know,
like that thing, right? Finally
yeah,
manifesting.
yeah, that's it. Exactly. So Sarah, because people, so your journey, I would say maybe is over a 2 year period. I think getting to the point of you feeling this, right? I'm gonna just put this out there. Neville Goddard, he's the main guy that I learned from apart from Wayne Dyer. And there are a few manifestation teachers that I go back to, and I only go back to a few because it's tried and true. You're talking about the attributes of God, like it's the Bible as well. So one of the things that we in terms of manifestation is really the feeling. Like, so it's not so much the material things. I think we spoke about this before. It's not so much about the career or the love of your life, or we think that when we have those things, we feel the way we want to feel. Actually, that's
Yeah.
what we always look for. So essentially, one of the missing pieces with you, so correct me if I'm wrong, we'd love to hear that, directly from you. That feeling aspect or the ability to feel was kind of missing. It was like you're blocked from it. Would you say that throughout those 2 years, opening up or like healing some of those things, or even I would say allowing yourself to feel, I would say even anger, so
Yeah.
because I think people really would love to understand that part, right? Like, how did you get through this? And from my understanding of your journey, it's so interesting. Like when I thought back, it's like you needed to feel the hard stuff first before you could even allow yourself to feel other things. I remember like that level of suppression that was there because you should tell us more about that. I'm serious. Like people would really need to know this.
Yeah,
Like
well, yeah, I mean, I was like so emotionally repressed. Like, like just thinking back to that person, it's like, ooh, that was like heavy, that was dark. Like, but here's the thing, like you mentioned anger, and I think it's interesting that you brought that up because in the beginning of 2022, I think it was, or 23, I don't know. No, it wasn't this year. I'm sorry, it's 24 now, but it wasn't this past year. Um, I went
2021, wasn't it not?
Well,
Why am I
21
feeling
we
so
started
much?
working together. It was because Zoe was a baby. Yeah,
Yeah, we
it's been a
were,
long
right?
time.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Okay. Crazy.
So anyway, the beginning of that year, I felt so much anger, like so much anger, and it took a few months. Like I remember, like it was starting in like January of that year, and then like through like March or whatever. Like I was having serious like anger issues. I wasn't lashing out at anybody, just to be clear. I wasn't, but just that very overwhelming feel of anger. And I feel like you have to, in some sense, walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? As you're coming out of this, like you have to work through that crap in your field because it's all there. You have to work through it. And I think, like, even with this recent spout of being really like depressed over, you know, realizing I was going to have another child, and just as I felt like I was coming out of like a financial kind of crisis, and I was coming to the point where I was becoming more financially independent, I was being really confident, and I was like, another child means a lot more financial, strain. And so it was a very hard and dark period. But the difference this time was that I remember being able to just sit back and observe and be like, it's going to pass. Like, I just have to process this through my field. And it's going to take a while for me to get through it. Like, I had like this observer part of me that was just like, yeah, this feels
Perfect.
like shit, but like, it's going to pass. Like, you're going to be fine. It's going to pass. It's just an emotion. It's really not anything to do with the baby. It's just you needing to process through, these emotions that are in your field. And I knew, like, it was still hard going through it, but I think like because I knew for certain that it would take me a few weeks or maybe in a couple months going through this very dark, depressive state. But I knew I would come out of it. I knew it wasn't going to stick around forever because I knew like I was just processing through something in my field, in my karma or something. Like I knew it was going to pass by. And I think just knowing that is part of probably what helped it pass by because I was understanding that it was just kind of flowing through. I think you helped
That's
me work through
huge.
stuff like sadness issues and stuff. I worked with you during that time, um, and yeah, I came out of it right. Um,
Yeah, yeah, no, you did. You really did. I mean, it's amazing. It's almost like as though, in some way, shape, or form, you needed to go through that almost to witness your own strength. You know, if there's something, let's just say some people listening to this and maybe they're going through some of the things that you're going through, they have to go through the dark night of the soul, they don't doubt themselves, they're feeling repressed. What would you, what was your advice to them? Sitting in where you are now, right? With what you've went through, would you have things or like a few things you want to say just to wrap this up for them?
Yeah, I think first of all, don't give up. I think sometimes when you're going through the dark night of the soul, you feel like maybe you did everything wrong. Like everything seems to be so dark and so bad. You're doing everything wrong. You did something. You need to go try something else, whatever. Like that's part of the process. Um, and and in that, don't judge yourself for those emotions. I think that really can stagnate you and prolong the time that you're in that space if you're judging yourself for those emotions that come up when you're in dark night of the soul, because they can be very heavy and very real. And just because even if you can be an observer and know like this is going to pass, it's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel because it just feels like this is never going to end. I'm going to be angry or sad or whatever it is forever. And it can feel very lost, and it can feel like a very eternal, you know, place. But I think like every day taking a minute to whatever you're doing to just feel into that, release that, and come back to silence. If you're having trouble feeling like love or gratitude or joy, silence is always a great place to find refuge in, because I think it's one of the first. I feel like it's one of the first places you can go when you're feeling sad or angry or depressed. Like silence is kind of the place of neutrality almost, where you can go as you're trying to work towards some of those positive emotions that you want to feel. So really cultivate silence, cultivate mindfulness, a sense of being, presence. And eventually, through that silence, you can start reaching towards those feelings of peace and joy that you're looking for.
Yeah, and what you're saying here is almost like you have to also work your way up, like, so, going to silence, like go easy on yourself, don't be so hard on yourself, recognizing that it's not going to last very long, even though it can feel like it. And then through that, once you've made peace with that or neutrality, you were saying, you could begin to go higher. So rather than aiming for the high, the stars like right away, you've got to just like tune in and go easy, essentially. Okay. Yeah. So Sarah, what we're gonna do is just to like wrap this up, then we'll talk more later. But this is so unexpected, but I really I'm just gonna, share this with people, So thank you so much for sharing this.
Absolutely.
We should talk again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna stop recording.